And welcome everyone to this week's video tutorial. I will be doing something new today. This file was donated to me by Master Zhao Yifan, AXF Master or World Xiangqi Master in their combined titles now. He's a very good friend of mine and has been teaching Xiangqi for many years. He is also one of the brightest prospects for Xiangqi in Taiwan and has several accomplishments under his belt, one of them defeating Grandmaster Wu Guiling in several times. And I hope you enjoy the game's his analysis of the same direction cannons, which is no holes barred and nothing hidden approach to his games. Which is one thing that I like very much about his videos. So without further ado, let us enjoy what Master Zhao has prepared for us. Now, according to Master Zhao Yifan, in all his years of playing Xiangqi, if he plays the central cannon and his opponent counters with the same direction cannons, he feels that there are few main reasons for black to do so. Normally, his opponent would often be an older player which is more familiar with the same direction cannons, and the next another thing that he has noted is that usually such players are slightly weaker in the opening variations and are much more stronger in the mid game and the end game phase of the game. And another reason for playing the same direction cannons is maybe the opponent is much stronger than you and decides to play the same direction cannons for some fun, or in the event of competition, because of the need to gain points in a do or die situation, sometimes the same direction cannons is used. As one of the more notable examples would be Grandmaster Hu Ronghua playing the same direction cannons as black in his last year when he won the Chinese national individual championships 10 in a row. So these are some of the main reasons, or some of the psych for black playing the same direction cannons, as it is not so commonly seen in tournaments nowadays. Now, according to Master Zhao Yifan, there are many examples that can be found on the Dongping website to validate his point. And as red, if you meet someone playing the same direction cannons, there are a few things that he suggests and advise. And this advice is also applicable to other opening systems. Master Zhao suggests that try to lead the game in the opening phase to something that you're familiar with, and try to avoid unfamiliar territory whereby the opponent might sometimes be able to spring traps. And if you have prepared very well or you have a prepared variation, try to lead the opening phase into that variation. So to continue, so far so good. Now in this in this board, Master Zhao Yifan would choose to play the foul chariot as red, while black would choose to use the rank chariot variation as black. Now this is a very commonly played variation. In the board, Master Zhao Yifan advised P3+1. Now, according to computer analysis of the position on the board, computer programs would suggest playing H8+7 instead of P3+1. So, however, Master Zhao Yifan suggests playing P3+1 as a better move, because usually if P3+1 were played, we would expect black to play R9 equals to 4, whereby the black chariot would cross the palace. However, if H8+7 were played, black would not necessarily have to make this move, and could counter with p3+1, thereby adding uncertainty to your opening variation. So that is why p3+1 is studied as the main line in this video. And in the board, the Master Zhao Yifan also presented h8+7 some variations, which I will present later on in the video. Now, as we continue, after p3+1, usually it would be better for black to play r9=4. And after black had finished making this move, would it be a good time to move to advance the left horse as a proper horse? So now a little bit of history. In the ancient manuals, red was afraid of making this move and usually would play h8+9. However, many games, and some of them very notable ones, have proved that it would be safe for red to make this move, because one of the main worries would be black playing r6+5 to attack the pawn and to add pressure on the horse over here. However, because of p3+1 had been played, actually this horse will be indirectly protected in this situation, so there will be nothing to fear. And perhaps the most notable game, or the stem game of this variation, would be the one played in 1966 when Grandmaster Hu Ronghua took on Grandmaster Li Yiting in a very exciting match. Now, at this point in time, how should black continue his attack? Now, in the match that was mentioned just now, Grandmaster Hu Ronghua versus Grandmaster Li Yiting, Grandmaster Li Yiting played h2+3. Now, in this board, Master Zhao Yifan presented 4 major variations. The first of which would be r4+5. The second would be r4+4. The third would be r4+7, and the last would be simply h2+3. Now, h2+3 was the variation that Grandmaster Li Yiting played, and it will be presented at the end of this video. Now, in the first variation, r4+5 was played and is still quite commonly seen. Now, how should red respond to this situation? As mentioned earlier, red's horse seemed to be vulnerable to attack, but how could red defend in this manner? Now, it is suggested that c5=4 would be played, and in the past, h3+4 has been the move that was given in the opening books or opening manuals. But Master Zhao Yifan feels that there will be no need to be so brash in this situation. Now, a short review of h3+4 is given in the manuals, which I have also presented in my other videos. h3+4, if h3+4 were played, black would usually attack the pawn as planned, but at this point in time, red would retreat the horse to the central position. This is usually not a good idea in most circumstances. However, in this situation, h7-5 would be a very nice move, and black should defend with a4+5, so that the central file would be fortified before black would start to attack the red pawn over here. Now, if red chose to attack the central pawn, black would continue with h4+6 for a fork, and this would force the chariot to move, and a trade of material would ensue. And it would be at this time that red will move the horse back to its original position. Now, as can be seen, the black chariot will now be pinned to the central file. It cannot move, or the central cannon will be delivering a check on the black king. So black will be forced to use up a move to retreat his chariot to safety. Now usually if r5 plus 1 were played, black could play r2 plus 3 and prepare to play h7 plus 5 to attack, and red will have a significant advantage because in terms of tempo, black would have lost many moves and his right flank will still be undeveloped. The black chariot will still need some time before it can join in the action, so red would have a significant advantage at this point in time. If black chose to retreat his chariot to the riverbank, red could attack in this manner. He could offer a pseudo sacrifice, prepare to capture or threaten the black chariot again, forcing it to advance, and red would now move or mobilize his left chariot. So this would be a very embarrassing dilemma for black, because if black moved the cannon away, red could continue his merciless attack on the black chariot, and the black chariot would have nowhere to go. So at this point in time, this will be to red's advantage. So that is why retreating r5 minus 2 or r5 minus 1 would not be a good idea, and this is usually the variation given in the opening books for beginners when playing this variation. So a short review: black should not attack the central pawn and must play a4 plus 5. So that is why the red can safely develop his left horse as a proper horse in this situation. And if if after playing a4 plus 5, red could continue to attack with r2 plus 6, forcing black to play h2 plus 1. So making this move would be a wait and see approach to the match, seeing how black would then see how red would respond in this situation, where he would move his chariot, and thus play accordingly. Now if red continued to capture the pawn, black could continue to play c2 plus 4 to add pressure and attack the central pawn, forcing the red house to move out, and black would capture the central pawn as planned. Now because the advisor had been moved, red would not be able to counter attack or capture the central pawn as needed or as an option that could be played. Now at this point in time, black can be satisfied with the situation on the board, because this was not given in Master Zhao's book, but let's say for example black would be able to protect his horse and force the red chariot away. So at this point in time, black would still have a very playable game. And one thing to note, black would have 4 pawns and red would have 3 pawns left. So actually in this variation, black would have gained a pawn instead. So this would be a perfectly playable position for black. Hence that is why although h3 plus 4 is advocated, it is still often seen, and I personally play this variation quite often. It's quite a fun variation to play as black. So just for beginners, this can be considered to be one of the variations to be memorized if you are playing the central cannon as red against black's same direction cannons. Nowadays it is advised for red to play c5 equals to 4 to adopt the sandwich horse defense formation. Now the beginner might often ask, would this not be a loss in tempo, or red would have wasted one move moving c2 equals to 5 before moving c5 equals to 4? It would indeed be the case, but red would be compensated with a more aggressive approach targeted at the black chariot, and the formation would be still very stable. and red would be able to bide his time to counter attack. And many games that have been played would show that this is a very feasible move to make. And this move is the move advocated by Master Zhao Yifan in this situation. So red will adjust his formation, and usually black will continue with h2 plus 3. Now in the board it was not discussed. Red will continue with e7 plus 5, but c4 plus 5 was not discussed. Master Zhao's idea behind this move would be that black would simply this would be a prophylactic measure against all possible attacks on the central pawn with by making this move, and red could start countering black's moves more accurately after the formation had been fixed. Even if black did not play h2 plus 3 and chose to play p3 plus 1, red would still make the same move to fix his formation in this situation to continue the game. Now p5 plus 1 would be played, whereby black would choose to attack from the central file with centrally linked horses. Red will fortify his central file, prepare to trade chariots, and at this point in time black would try to attack the horse, and there were two variations, there was sub-variations that were discussed at this point in time. It would be advocated to play r9 equals to 7 now. r9 equals to 6 would not be a good idea, as black would continue to attack from the central file. And at this point in time, black would have realized his hopes of pushing or making advances on red's area, and red would have a slightly cramped position. So black can be very satisfied in this situation, and conversely red cannot be satisfied with this outcome. So this is why r9 equals to 6 would not be a good idea at this point. Instead, r9 equals to 7 would be a very good move at this point in time, according to Master Zhao, and he based this on his many years of experience playing this variation. Usually in the board he gave this variation h3 plus 5, and red would, at this point, after black had played h3 plus 5, would red counter with c8 plus 4 to attack the central horse here. Now making this move at this point in time would also be critical, because if black if red did not make this move, black would be prepared to play c2 equals to 3 to try to gain material, or to apply a pin to the red horse and chariot on this file. So black would usually continue with p5 plus 1, whereby red would continue to attack the black chariot. This is one of the ways that the sandwich house formation can counter attacks by the enemy's central cannon. Black would be forced to retreat the chariot, and at this point in time red will simply capture the offending black pawn. Now one might ask, would it be a good idea for red to simply trade material at this point in time? Now according to Master Zhao, this would not be advised, because at this point in time, in the opening phase of the game, the cannon will be more mobile and will be a better piece to use than the horse comparatively, and the central pawn will now be an immediate threat to black, and black will have to find ways of dealing with this pawn immediately. So uh, red would be also prepared to play c4 equals to 5 to attack the central file. So at this point in time, red can be very satisfied with this situation or this formation on the board now. So a short review. In the first variation, if black attacked with r4 plus 5, it was advocated for red to switch formations and adopt the sandwich horse formation, and to solidify the central file. And when black chose to play r4 equals to 3, it will be advocated for red to protect his horse with r9 equals to 7 and advance his cannon at the appropriate time, and thereby gain this position, which would be better for red. And all the moves that are given in this book have been analyzed with the computer, and it is a very useful and practical approach to the game. Now back to the position of discussion, h plus 7. If black chose to attack with r4 plus 4 for the cross riverbank chariot, the following might happen. Red would again adopt the sandwich horse formation, and when red makes this move, the situation on the board would be such that it will be a game whereby both players would try to control the main lines as the main idea at the moment in time for attack. Now if black tried to attack from the central file, red could still choose to play p7 plus 1 to protect the pawn, and play c8 plus 2 to attack and protect his riverbank. So red will have gained initiative in this situation. So it will be one of the things that black can do now would be only to capture the pawn. Now if black did so, red will be prepared to counter, protecting the horse. Black would make this move as a prophylactic measure to prevent or to discourage red from retreating c8 plus 2. I would like to backtrack a little bit at this time. Red would choose to protect the horse in this manner instead of immediately retreating the cannon, because red would hope to play c8 minus 1 and c8 followed by c8 equals to 3 to add pressure to the chariot, and also to the file, to black's file on this file, sorry. And by doing so, red would have managed to concentrate at least 3 to 4 major pieces targeting black's flank, and it would apply a lot of pressure on black's relatively weakened flank. And thus far, the black chariot had made too many moves, so this will result in a further loss of tempo for black, and that is why r2 plus 2 is played. And as mentioned earlier, black would play c2 equals to 4. So if red chose to retreat his left cannon, c8 equal minus 1, black could block it and prevent it from moving over to the right flank. And black would usually continue with consolidating his defense with e7 plus 5, forcing black to retreat the chariot, and still try to black will still attempt to concentrate his forces on the right flank. So at this point in time, black would choose to move his chariot to attack the cannon. Now at this point in time, red would have a significant advantage because all his major pieces will now have already moved or be prepared to move, and there were very many good lines of development. Now this was an actual match that was played in 2011, and it was played by Grandmaster Zhao Xin, which has no blood relations with Master Zhao Yifan. Okay, Mr. Zhao Yifan is from Taiwan, and Grandmaster Zhao Xin is from China. So r4 plus 4 would not be a good idea either. The third variation that was discussed was r4 plus 7, which is one of the variations that was discussed in the that's more commonly seen in the ancient manuals and not very commonly seen nowadays. Now this is considered now to be a very rare or inappropriate way for black to attack, and red would have many ways to counter. If black chose to do so, red would immediately push his pawn forward. So at this point in time, this would be the double-headed snake pawns formation, and black would be placed in a dilemma. If black chose to attack with c2 equals to 3, preparing to push the pawn forward to capture the red horse, red would respond in the following manner. So at this point in time, the riverbanks will now be controlled by red, and if black tried to continue with p3 plus 1, these were the moves that were given by Master Zhao Yifan. So this would be in effect a trade of material. And as can be seen, despite black having tried to attack, or despite black trying to attack with by pushing the black chariot to the red's throat rank, black would have gained nothing from this attack. And according to computer analysis, red would have gained a advantage of about 150 points, which is quite significant, especially so early in the opening phase. So red can be very satisfied with this outcome. Now, if after p7 were played, if black tried to attack with c5 equals to 3 instead, trying to concentrate his forces, red could counter it also with the cross riverbank chariot. And at this point in time, one of the biggest issues that black would have would be the development of his black horses, because since red had already pushed both his pawns forward, the red horses would now be ready to jump into attack at any point in time. So according to computer analysis, red would have an advantage of about 100 plus, would be about plus 100 in this situation. So short review again, r4 plus 7 is not a good idea, although it would seem to be very aggressive, as black would be prepared to play r4 equals to 3 and cause some damage or threaten to disrupt red's otherwise stable formation. But this can be prevented simply with p7 plus 1, and this I personally recommend to be one way to memorize or deal with in similar situations for red. In the last variation, which was the game that was played by Grandmaster Hu Ronghua as red against black's Grandmaster Li Yiting, h2 plus 3 was given. Now in h2 plus 3, black would choose to consolidate his position, and the pace of the game will be slowed down, but both players would now be attacking more deliberately. So red will adopt the double-headed snake pawns. Red will attack with r4 plus 5 as planned, and this was the move that was played by the Grandmaster back in the 1960s. Now at this point in time, the situation on the board would have transpositioned back into another very popular variation, whereby red will push both the pawns, the double-headed stick pawns, and black could attack with black will attack in this situation. Now this variation has been covered in some of the earlier videos with comments by Master Huang Shaolong. Please refer to my channel or the relevant videos under the section of English commentaries by Master Huang Shaolong. Master Zhao Xin did mention that at this point in time, instead of e7 plus 9, red could also consider playing r9 plus 2, it will still be a very effective way of attacking. So if r9 plus 2 were played, and at this point in time, red could be considered to have a very successful opening in this situation, whereby all the pieces are well developed, and black would now red would now be prepared to attack this file. This on black's side of the board, black's entire left flank was only protected by one horse, so it would be very vulnerable for attack by the chariot, the cannon, and possibly the horse in this situation. So red would have a very nice advantage going to the mid-game phase. So that is why Master Zhao Yifan suggested that a r9 plus 2 would be a good idea at this point in time. Now in the match by Grandmaster Hu Ronghua against Li Yiting, the following moves were played. I will not go into the details of the match, but just to let you see what would happen if h2 plus 3 were played. So as can be seen, Grandmaster Hu Ronghua was attacking very aggressively, which is one of the prerequisites if you want to play the same direction cannons. If you are of either color, you have to be aggressive and be prepared for very violent clashes very early on in the game. At this point in time, this was the move that Grandmaster Li Yiting played back in the 1960s. However, this was later, upon post-mortem analysis, this was suggested to be a very weak move. Instead, r1 equals to 3 would have been better, whereby black would still have an even situation. And as the red horse and red's possible attack from this flank would be neutralized. Now in the match, r3 minus 2 was played, and Grandmaster Hu Ronghua chose to trade material. This was another mistake by Grandmaster Li Yiting. A better move at this point in time would have been to retreat the elephant and to consolidate the defense, where black would still have a chance of a draw. So, and after trading chariots, there will still be a possibility for black to force a draw if our e1 minus 3 were played. However, in the match, Grandmaster Li Yiting chose to trade material, and this would lead to the start of his downfall. Trading material, attack on the edge file, and this was another move that was slightly controversial. In the game, Grandmaster Li Yiting attacked very aggressively with r2 plus 4. Well, perhaps, but it would be black would not fare better if r6 equals to 4 were played. If r6 equals to 4 were played, it will be red's game for the taking, as can be seen from the following moves. Black will simply capture the horse and be prepared to checkmate with e3 plus 3 for the smarted cannon. And because the chariots will be on the same file or rank, there will be no checkmate for red, and black will be forced eventually to sacrifice or sacrifice his chariot, but it will still not be able to prevent red's impending c3+3 smothered cannon checkmate. So that is why black cannot fall into red's trap and play r6 equals to 4. And in the game, Grandmaster Li Yifan played r2+4, but at this point in time, red would have garnered a significant advantage. And in the game, Grandmaster Li Yifan became very aggressive and chose to attack the advisor in this manner. However, perhaps a better move would have been would have been h2+4 to trade chariots. Check. And at this point in time, black would be lacking an elephant, but red would also have the extra pawn. However, black would still have his chances of forcing a draw in this less than desirable situation, and it would have been much better than losing the game, as was the outcome in the match. So after capturing the advisor, black, it would be red's game for the taking. Now the reason for capturing the advisor was that by sacrificing the chariot, if the red king captured, black would be able to attack check, and if the red king captured the chariot, black would attack in this manner. Black would be placing all his hopes on a possible tiger silhouette attack or the angler horse checkmate. But red would be able to defend just in the nick of time, and again the threat of c9 equals to 3 for the smothered cannon checkmate will be too great, and black will not be able to handle. Now for beginners, if black chose to advance the elephant, it would be simply caught. So at this point in time, Grandmaster Li Yifan resigned and Grandmaster Ronghua won in their counter. So a short review of the boards or the variations that were given by Master Zhao Yifan. Okay, p3 plus, I'll do it from the beginning. Okay, in this variation, red would play p3+1 very early on in game after developing his right chariot as a foul chariot, while black would do so with a ranked chariot. So far, these are all orthodox moves. And after r9 equals to 4, red would choose to develop both horses as proper horses to consolidate the central file. And four variations were given. The first would be r4+5, the second one will be r4+4, the third will be r4+7, and the last would be h2+3. Now amongst the 4 variations, h2+3 would perhaps be the best option with the best success rate for black, and black would still have a playable game if black counted correctly in the ensuing phase. So I hope you have enjoyed this week's video, and I want to thank Master Zhao Yifan, my very good friend, again for allowing me to do this video as red and sharing it with the English speaking world. The material here has been analyzed with computer analysis and represents a very truthful, no holds barred or no secrets kept analysis of the situation at board. I personally have benefited quite a bit from his lessons, and Master Zhao Yifan teaches in various schools in Taiwan as part of his regular routine. And as a young master still climbing the ranks, I personally have much confidence in him in making the next level. He's already a Asian Xiangqi master, and the future looks bright and rosy for him. So I hope you have enjoyed this week's video tutorial, and if you like my channel, please subscribe, and I hope that Master Zhao Xinxin or other experts will be able to share more of the insights of the game with me, and so that I can translate them into English and share it with the non-Chinese speaking world. Okay, thank you, have a nice day, and I still hope that everyone stays safe from COVID-19. Be safe.